Guys, happy Monday. How are y'all doing? It's good to see you guys here in the coffee chat. If you're joining me, definitely say hi, leave me your name. I'm going to watch the comments for any questions that come up. Tell me who you are, where you're from, and if you missed it and you're catching the replay later, definitely hashtag replay and I'll come back and answer any questions and chat with you. So today is a topic that's come up recently in the DMs. We were having a conversation. One of you reached out to me and you said, "Can you be addicted to food?" And I just thought it was such an interesting conversation. I was glad that you reached out to me about it because that's how I come up with these ideas for coffee chats. You guys tell me, I'm having trouble with this or I'm struggling with this, and I'm like, this is something that you're not alone in this. So I wanted to come on and chat with you guys today about that. So the question that we're going to cover and the topic is, am I addicted to food? Maybe, and this was the case as you were chatting to me, I think you had a friend that was diagnosed with food addiction. So maybe you've been to the doctor or somebody has diagnosed you or you know somebody that's been diagnosed with food addiction. So I just want to dive deeper into this today, this idea that we could be addicted to food. I think this is a really loaded question, first of all, and I want to take some time to explore it today with you all. Leave me any questions that you have in the comments, and I want to really just have a back and forth discussion with you about this since this question came up. I'm going to ask you several questions too, and if any of these resonate with you, just put me in the comments below. Do you feel like you have like a codependent relationship with food? Or maybe you feel like maybe you drink water to keep yourself occupied so you don't eat. Do you think food is toxic? These are all things that, I've heard from you guys. If you try to make peace with food and allow yourself permission to eat the food, you feel like you've fallen into a trap of eating where you can't stop. Do you just wish you knew how to act around food? What I would describe it as when I'm talking to clients or I'm talking to you guys on coffee chats is like maybe you feel like in Facebook world your relationship with food is complicated. So if this is you, I know you're in a really tough spot, and I hope that I can help you today in this coffee chat together. So if this is you, make sure you type me in the comments, because what will happen is I'll come back and I'll chat with you too. So first of all, you guys that do put something in comments, that do say me, I struggle with this thing, I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate you for like reaching out to me and talking to me about these topics and sharing your concerns with me. I think there are a few things we need to chat about today in terms of food addiction, and I think food addiction is just one of them. So let's go back to this idea of a love-hate sort of complicated relationship with food. My husband tells me I clear my throat too much, and I just caught myself. So I'll try to get better about that. But anyway, let's go back to this idea about a love-hate relationship with food. Do you feel like kind of this pull, like you have this back and forth with food? We all need food. Food is something we can't live without. Food, like, do you guys feel like sometimes that you hate the way you need food? Because I've heard it explained this way, like, do you wonder how you can control that power struggle that's inside of you when it comes to food? If this is you and you feel that pull and you feel just the struggle, the internal struggle, put "it's complicated" in comments. So I speak with you guys daily. If it's not in this group, it's in the DMs, it's through email, on social media. So many of you, I know you're working through this process of food freedom. That's why you're in the group. And especially in the beginning stages of this process, some of you guys still feel like you need to have this control around food. Whether it's controlling the amount of food, maybe it's controlling the sugar content of food, maybe it's a particular macronutrient. You've got to control your fat or your carbohydrate, or you've got to get enough protein. Maybe you feel like you've got to try to drink water to avoid or stave off hunger. These are kind of all things that I hear you tell me you go through in the beginning stages of this. So many of you guys feel that you have the need to control food. And I want you to know, first of all, that this is completely normal growing up in the world that we live in diet culture. It's so heavy. So many of us have been told to control food from a very young age, and we need more willpower. We need more motivation. So this is completely normal, and a lot of us feel, because we've grown up in diet culture, like we have to micromanage our nutrients or have this control around food. Well, what happens and what this actually does is it makes us lose control around it. So what happens is we control for so long to a point where our body steps in and it's like, hey, I need this. This is not okay. So then what happens is we start feeling bad and we start feeling like we're not doing good and something's just not right with us. And if this is you, and you felt this way before, put not okay in comments. I'll come back and I'll read all of them and I'll reach out to you. But as a dietitian, so we've been trained that food and our physiology. So like food is just like air. It's something that we need, is what I'm, I guess, trying to say with this. It's as necessary as air that we breathe, as sleep that we need to survive. So we need sugar. We need carbohydrates. It's glucose for our brain. I'm going kind of back to biochemistry class here in the Krebs cycle, but we need these things to have a brain that functions, that's not brain dead. Yet somehow the world around us has made us feel like we're doing something bad if we have sugar or carbs, and we feel out of control around those foods. First of all, it's just something our body was created and made to do, is digest and metabolize foods. Foods were never meant to be analyzed or calculated, and that's why we feel so obsessed when we start doing these things. They kind of take over our brain. We're not robots. Our bodies are meant to function. So do you ever think like, oh, I'm getting all the healthy things that I need, I should be fine? Well, here's the thing. We don't need to rely on all this external data, all these apps that are telling us like we're too short in this, we need more of this, because that just basically tells us that our body can't be trusted. So with every app, with every tracker, with every meal plan, you're disengaging that body trust that we're trying to work to bring back. So we learn by doing this that our body isn't good, and we break that trust with our body. I'm going to give you an example, and I heard a good example recently somewhere, but back to the physiologically and the fact that we need air, this was a really good example. If you think about swimming, and I was actually just talking with a woman yesterday at the pool, and she told me she almost drowned. Now I want you to think about if you were swimming and you held your breath underwater, and you're trying to swim as long as you can, what happens when you aren't getting any air into your lungs? You've got to come up for air. What happens when you get to the top? If you've been holding your breath and it's been going on a long time, I bet you come to the top of the water and you're like, huge gasps of breath. You need air. So this is what happens. So you take deep breaths because your body needs air. And this is really similar to what happens with food. So let's say you're trying to control, and I'm not going to have any carbs for like a long time. Your body is going to kick in and tell you, I need this now. And I'm going to give you 2 steps that you're going to want to start working on if you struggle with this stuff today. So I get so frustrated, when I see the world we live in diet culture, normalizing our failures, like when we eat. So like when we finally have a piece of bread, like it's normal. But it's not normal. It's normal to have a bun with your burger. So let's go back to those steps, things that you can work on today if you're struggling with this sort of thing. This idea that you can't control yourself around food, or maybe you're thinking, am I addicted to food or this or that? The first thing I want you to work on is knowing that you can let go of the control. Learning that we can trust ourselves, that we can trust our body. I really want you to understand the reason behind why you feel so out of control. It's because of a reaction that you're having to the restriction and the control around food. So instead of seeing this urge or this cravings that you have as a problem, I want you to see it as your body is reacting. And I want you to get curious about why. So ask yourself, well, what if I take away all the restrictions around food and stop trying to have this control around it? This is going to be a really great place to start. And I also know a very scary place to start. If you're sitting there saying, whoa, I have tried this already, it does not work for me, Wendy, it backfires every time. I want you to think about it this way. Maybe you try to let go. Maybe you tried to make the peace, and then you find yourself falling deeply into this pattern where you're eating all the things, and you're like, well, I'm addicted. I can't do this. When I hear people tell me this, I think about a couple of different things. There's something that in intuitive eating world that we call the honeymoon phase. When you're working through this process and you're allowing yourself permission to eat, you go through kind of a honeymoon phase with food because it's new to you. Again, you've not had it for so long. So we're going to touch on that, and we're also going to touch on this idea that I call our program Finding Food Freedom. There's also this fake food freedom that comes in the beginning when you're working through this with a lot of people that have been chronic dieters their whole life. So let's talk about fake freedom first, fake food freedom, because I see this happening. It's pretty common when you're working through this phase. Say you're really trying to allow yourself permission to eat, and you're allowing yourself permission, but it's still conditional. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to try this, allow myself permission to eat anything I want today or for right now and see how it goes. Well, see, this would be fake food freedom, not real food freedom, because there's still a today, and if that doesn't work for you and you eat all the things and the diet starts tomorrow. So you're still in this like diet mentality mindset with intuitive eating. It's not real freedom. Then there's this idea of, the honeymoon phase, which I started to talk about. And there's this period of time where you just take away all the restriction and the rules, and I see people get really excited about food. Maybe they start baking and doing all these things and eating all these things they haven't had in so long, and maybe you're telling yourself, okay, so this is great. I'm allowed to eat all this stuff. I'm gonna just, and then next thing you know, there's no limit. There's no limit to how much, the frequency. I can have as much as I want. It's kind of like a free for all, right? The honeymoon phase is. I'm going all in, and people that sometimes run into this, they like freak out, and they're like, see, like this happens. I just can't trust myself around food. I just go crazy. So I want you to try to see both of these things, if you've done either one of them, as part of the process, and they're completely normal. So when you guys come to me and you're telling me, oh my gosh, this is not working for me, it's because it's not a diet. And so this is completely normal. Allow yourself to go through those phases of the process to learn that the foods that maybe you've been restricting for a long time are going to be introduced a little bit more right now. And that's okay. And what I mean by right now is usually, and we'll go into this, over time, when your body realizes that they're going to be around in your diet, they're no big deal anymore. But it takes a while for you guys to get there. So I want you to trust and see that this is part of the process. Learn to lean in to the uncomfortable feelings. And I know, as hard as that is, the women that can do that can get curious, that can go with the flow, that can trust, this expedites their process so much faster. They don't get stuck in that cycle. So this too shall pass. If you're in this cycle right now, I want you to think about a couple things. Okay, think about Halloween candy when you're a kid. You come home from school buzzing, you have, a bucket full of candy, you're on a sugar high for 2 days, and next thing you know, it's months later and your mom still has your Halloween candy, and you've forgotten all about it. So this is called habituation. And what this means is, over time, you get tired of something, having it day in, day out. And so you get tired of it and you want something else. So that's part of this process we work through together, is habituation. And we go into this in so much more detail in the group programs. But anyone out there today that resonates with this idea that I'm addicted to food, in the comments, just put food addiction. And I really encourage you to explore what this term means, habituation. I talked about the honeymoon phase. Think about people that, they're first dating, and then they get married and they're on their honeymoon, and then next thing you know, they're on their 25th anniversary. It's not as exciting anymore. It's great. You love this person, but it's not, it's comfortable. And they're going to be around. This is what can happen with food. So we might not be exposed to certain foods if we can't afford them. I do want to mention this. We don't have access to them. We don't feel safe around them. Some people, we're on a diet. Maybe that's why we don't have access to these foods. There could be many different reasons why we don't have access to foods, or why we're restricting foods. But then what happens is you finally get access to this food you've been restricting, and then what happens is you eat more than your body wants or needs. And if you continue to eat the thing, after a while it will just kind of lose its shininess. You will get bored of it. Trust me. It goes through habituation. If you've got intuitive eating, if you've got the book, there's There's a lot of information on this in there. I see so many people, I guess the point is in all this, I see so many people identifying themselves or questioning the fact that maybe they're addicted to something or they're addicted to food. And after working together, what happens when we go back and we talk about this is they're like, I don't really refer to myself as a food addict anymore. And so it's interesting because this takes me back to the comment I had, a conversation in the DMs with someone recently in the group that reached out to me, and it's like our society is trying to like medicalize our relationship to food. And when people start giving themselves permission and they have cravings and they have this excitement around food, and believe me, over time it will diminish. Studies show, I'm going to get nerdy with you guys and talk about some studies, but studies show that when we give ourselves access to something, those things just lose their naughtiness. The feeling that you can't have that thing causes a control within us. And when you decide that food is just food, it starts to normalize. So it makes me completely crazy when I see this, like, people are being diagnosed or trying to like medicalize this term of food addict. Food can still taste good. It can still be appealing. Over time, you won't always have this rush of excitement if food is just food. Food can have a very kind of boring and mundane side to it too. And intuitive eating, I had this conversation with someone recently, a new client, and she's trying to work through this process, and I said, sometimes food can just be self-care. It doesn't have to be exciting or so flavorful or amazing. Every meal doesn't have to be that way. Part of this intuitive eating is learning to use food in a way that you know how to take care of yourself and your body. So that might be that you're having regular, reliable meals. It might be knowing that you're not super hungry, but you've got meetings all afternoon, and you know that if you don't eat something or even a snack to tide you over, that you're going to go into primal hunger mode by the time you come home, and you're going to eat everything in the room. So intuitive eating is learning to know your body, its wants, its needs, to nourish it so that it performs optimally. It's not just a hunger fullness diet. It's taking care of yourself. So it's also going through this process so that you can stop feeling so out of control around food. If you're feeling out of control around food and you've been restricting, it's absolutely normal and expected. So many times when I hop on coffee chats with you guys, I hear lots of conditions from you with food. So even if you feel like you're giving yourself 100%, permission to eat the foods, I can hear and I can feel sometimes when we're talking that it's not truly 100%. There's something kind of holding back within you. It's like you want to let it go, but you aren't 100% trusting the process, that you won't just like completely lose all control. And so you're not trusting your body fully, and that's part of this journey. It can be really scary, and that is okay. I mean, so many times we run from these feelings, and it's easier to go back on another diet, but we know that 95% of those diets fail, and we gain back plus what we put on. So maybe you're still struggling with food labeling. What I mean by labeling is like labeling that food as healthy or unhealthy. Maybe you're still struggling with morality around food. That's like, hey, I'm good because I ate this way today, but I was really bad when I got home from work and I did this. I was bad. And maybe body image and trying to micromanage every little thing is kind of creeping in, and that's some of the things that you're struggling with. And if you're struggling with any of those, just put me in the comments and we can talk about this offline. Second step. So the first step is trying to let go of that control. And the second step is really important, you guys. Get support by finding a community. So find a community like this one. Find a community where people are trying to go through this journey together. Even just listening to this coffee chat, even if it's just getting involved in the group, involved in post threads and commenting and finding other people in the group, seeing that they're going through the same thing as you. It's really, really important. If you're feeling like out of control around food, some people could start to feel really broken, like there's something wrong with them. It's what diet culture wants us to believe. So that if we don't have the motivation, or if we don't have that willpower to not eat these things, then it's our fault, that we're a bad person. And that just makes it extremely hard to trust ourselves, to trust our body, and to let go through this process. So find a community or find a coach, someone that can support you through this process. It can be super, super beneficial, you guys. So what I've learned from working with so many women throughout this journey is this theme of isolation and shame. That I love my girl Brene Brown, but shame is real, especially when it comes to food and body image. So if you're out there and you're thinking you're all alone, I would encourage you to look into joining one of our small groups. We have another one starting up soon. Finding Food Freedom starts in September, and the doors are open for the next couple of weeks. So if you feel isolated and alone, don't go through this alone. Removing the shame and the feeling that you're all alone in this will really expedite the process. It'll really, if you're feeling stuck, this will really help. So knowing that you're not alone, and I can just suggest that you add as many layers into this as possible. If you're in the group, get active in the group. Start commenting on the post. Join our next small group program. It's called Finding Food Freedom. It'll help support you through the healing process. There's a community aspect to that. I also do one-on-one coaching, work with people. But you know what, guys? I've come to realize in all of this that it's so important to work with groups. And there's so much that is accomplished in those groups as we go through the process of healing our relationship with food. So if you're interested in finding food freedom, I just want you to comment group in the comments below. And the next one begins September 4th. Like I said, the doors are open now. Just comment group in the comments below. I hope you guys have a great day.